What is up, guys? Okay, so if you watched all the way to the end of the last video, you will see, and now I'll show you, also by the thumbnail, we are gonna start doing some square tube frames. So I got the bender done, ready. Everything's been finished, welded on. It is ready to go. Added the wing kit, added the, these are the V dies you need. Those are the dies that you need to bend the square tube so that it looks like a diamond shape. Bottle jack just makes everything way easier to get it lifted up in the air. The spring keeps all the tension. This is what's going to hold the pipe threaders that you get from Harbor Freight. Helps with just making everything electric. I'll show you guys that video here in a second. And then here's your tubing. So a big thing to know about doing square tube is that the die can go up to 1.5 inches. But what that does is it actually spreads the metal. So you only need to do 1.25 inches to get the same appearance as 1.5 inches round. That makes any sense? I don't know. But what it does is once you put them in these dies here and you smash them down, and as it bends it, it actually spreads this metal here and it gives it a wider appearance. So you don't need to go any bigger than 1.25 inches, which is a good thing because it's actually a little cheaper. And you can do 1 inch for the chain stays. So we've got ourselves some 1 inch here. Your 7/8 will fit inside that 1 inch. So I'm gonna make handlebars on this one. I'll show you how to make handlebars. All of this is 16 gauge. So if you ask me in the comments, I'm not gonna answer. I'm telling you, 16 gauge, 1.25 inch square, 1 inch square will get you where you need to be with these. If you go to 1.5 inches, super hard to bend. So what we gotta get into is I need to make a stand for that. It's just one of those Harbor Freight stands, but I need to grind the paint off, get it in here, get it welded up so that I can install it. Got some things over here to drill into the ground so I can have the stand sitting right here. I like it to, it's gonna just stay there. I think that's a good spot for it. So I'm gonna jump on that real quick. You guys don't need to watch me weld up a stand, and I'm gonna get all this set up ready to go, and then we'll get started on the frame. So there you go, guys, that is done. It's all nice and welded down there. It's attached to the ground. Nothing's going anywhere. Got all this set to go. So a big thing with these, so that you guys know, when you're using these V dies, make sure you use a lot of lube because the metal will actually eat into these really bad. Did that before. Found out the hard way. Ask me how I know. But yep, other than that, we had one little snag. The directions say to weld this hub on 4.5 inches from here. Well, by doing that, this is too far back. So, and I don't feel like I have enough hanging on. So I did order another one of these and another one of these. It stinks, but lesson learned. I did have a buddy TIG weld this because it is so thick, but I think I can weld it. It's all steel. This is chromoly, but that's steel, and I think I can weld that up. That's already done in there. Other than that, I think we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night though, and because we still got to clean all that before we can stick it in there. And I'm gonna go in, work up the design that I want to do, because I do have something in mind. It's nothing crazy. I don't want to be too difficult with this one, just because I need to get it done and get it sold so that I can get back on the build-off bike, which I did have a little change of heart on the back legs. Chain stays, sorry, chain stays for those who's asking or correcting. But have a little different direction on the chain stays. The bottom brackets, or the dropouts, dropouts should be in like this week, so should be able to get on that. So this has got to get done quick. Anyway, enough rambling. Y'all have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow. All right there, so another day. Another hurricane coming. Yippee. Anyway, it's on the other coast, coming this way, just be a tropical storm. But it's nice and windy out there, so it actually feels good in the shop for once. Anyway, I'm gonna get this metal cleaned up. I'm not gonna make you guys watch. Wanted to show you guys a quick test piece. So this was a smaller piece that I had, but just to give you guys kind of an idea that this here turned in to this here. So you get the idea now of what that'll do. I'll probably use this piece for something. Don't want to waste it, but that's what the bender does. You can see how much you lose though. Like you're gonna lose because it moves, just like my bender over there, because it moves it so much further away from each other. You're losing about 8 inches off of the pipe, so that kind of stinks. It's quite a bit of metal loss there, but you get the idea. So I'm gonna clean this up real quick, not make you watch. I don't know how much we're gonna really get done tonight. Going into work late tomorrow, so maybe I can come down and get a midsection bent out of this. So let's go. And ready, all cleaned up. We can go ahead and probably do some bends in the machine. Let me get that all set up over there, and then we'll be able to see if I can do it. Because like I said, we still got to replace a part. I can still use it with the pipe threader. So I'll give you guys kind of an idea of how all this works, and we'll put a piece in and get it done. Alright guys, so when you're going to use this bender, like I said yesterday, you need to do a lot of lube. So either some WD-40, I like using some cutting oil, something strong enough that's really going to help here. So you're going to make a bit of a mess, but you definitely want there to be plenty of lube on it. I'd say lube it to death if you can. If you don't, you're going to get some scarring. So another tip for you too is that this is seamed metal, which means when it was attached, they ran basically a weld down the center here, or down this piece. If you're going to put that, when you're bending it, you want to make sure it's on the inside of your bend and try to get it all on the same direction. So when I bend this, I'm going to bend it this way or this way, doesn't matter. But you want that seam to be on the inside of the frame, so when you're looking at the top of the frame, you're not seeing this seam because that'll show up there. Alright, so another big thing too is you want to get this ready to be adjusted. So when you're putting this in here, you kind of want to just slide it back and forth a little bit, let the dies get straight, and then you can start cranking this down. And this is what makes this a lot easier to use, is because you can sit here and do this instead of having to twist this top up here. That'll make it, almost makes it impossible to use. So get it on there, slide it back and forth. Once you get tension on this middle piece here, you want to slide this back and forth because you need to get this center die can move back and forth, and you want everything to be straight. So get it in there, get it where you need it, and then we're going to hook up the pipe threader and do the rest. Alright guys, I got the can't talk to say. I got the pipe threader on. So like you can see here, this is actually supposed to be all the way through there. So whatever reason they tell you to measure from here to the top of that, it's 4.5 inches. That's what the paperwork says right there. 4.5 inches down the beginning of the shaft. That does not work. So like I said, I ordered a new one. Hopefully that'll be in here within the next couple days. But I'm going to give you guys kind of an idea of how this machine works using the pipe threader instead of using the big wheel. So here we go. Alright, so you kind of get the idea as how this moves it back and forth. If I had the big wheel on here, then I have to crank it by arm. This isn't the hard part. The hard part is when you're actually getting into the crank. So same thing as when you're doing round tube, you're going to go ahead and put that center of the die. Get it where you need it, tighten her down, maybe like a couple pumps. You don't need to go crazy because you don't want to start crush. This stuff crushes pretty easy. But hopefully I'll put you guys on time lapse and we should be able to see it start to bend. Alright, that wasn't so bad. This is actually my first time ever using one of these. I've always used the big, huge wheel here, which you still can use. It doesn't make it so that you can't. They just suck. But anyway, that still works just fine. So no need for this thing. You guys can see here, clean this up, and then I'll show you guys. It did take a second, but it was definitely easy. Wasn't a whole lot to it. I didn't have to strain myself, and I got a pretty good bend out of it. As you can see, like, that's got a pretty decent bend. So one thing I do got to warn you guys on metal tubing, and I kind of did it here. I'm sorry, not metal, because of course it's metal. Square tubing. The more you bend this, and I probably went a little bit further than I wanted to, you will pick up small dents in areas if you're not careful. So I did get a little one there, which I can fix, but gives you kind of an idea. Let me clean this up and then I'll go put it on the table. All right, so here you can see, now you can see the bend I got, which I got a really good bend out of this one. We'll chop it here. This will go across here. The cool thing about doing square tube, some people are going to tell you that doing square tube is harder. I don't think so. It may be a little bit more difficult to bend. Square tube can only go in one direction, and when it lays down on the table, it's gonna lay flat. Like, it doesn't have a choice, because it's laying down on its bend. So when it's time to do things like notching or cutting and trying to get an angle out of it, it can only go one way. You're not guessing. So like, here's an example, is when I have to cut this here, I don't have to worry about this end not being the same area. You can only cut from here to here. It's not round. So when you're doing a round tube and you're trying to figure out which end, you have to sit there and look down the tube, you're looking down it, trying to see is that end notch the same way as this back end? Is everything perfectly straight? Well, with square tube, you don't have to worry about that. Also, another cool thing, when you're welding the square tube, you've got these nice flat areas to weld to. You're not welding a round tube. And I'm pretty excited too, because when I was doing square tube, it's been 2 years now since I've done square tube. I didn't have the tube notcher, and that does take square tube. As you can see, it has the square tube area. So that's going to be cool to be able to do a nice notch in those and not doing them by hand, because I swear it wants to cut your finger off. So I'm going to do a few more bends on that. I don't need to show you guys that again, but I need to do a few more bends, and then we'll probably call it a night, get back on it again tomorrow. So I'll probably see you guys then. Alright guys, so back another day. We are out here during our tropical storm, Nicole. She's coming through, so it's just windy, rainy, nothing that we don't normally see anyway. So I did get all the bending done. So I've got my main, front, my backbone, I guess that's my down tube, sorry, down tube, backbone, seat tube here, bottom tube there. This is just the extra because this will get clipped and then go into the seat. I'll show you guys the drawing here in a minute. But yeah, so what we need to do is just cut our ends off so you can see where it crushes it. This is what you're going to lose, all of that. So we're going to cut that off so it's out of our way. And then we can get in to start doing the tubing notcher on the square tube, which I'm kind of excited about. I don't know why, but because I've never done it. So I think I've done it once, but not in this form. Happy about that. Let's get to cutting, get some metal grinding. Alright, so everything's bent, everything's cut. Now, just like any other frame, we're going to go through and start placing where we want our stuff. I went ahead and I labeled what I needed so that I knew where it would go. There, I think. Backbone, so I can play there to there, probably there to there. This tube might not, yeah, probably work. Make it work. Kind of like it to come a little bit further down to do like our seat. Yeah, we'll make that work. I'm gonna probably run 29s on this frame. I'll have plenty of room for the arm, for the upper chainstay. These are a lot different than when you're doing round tube because you don't turn them and run them into the frame. You notch them to the frame, which I'll show you guys. Kind of want to run this lower, but it's there. I want that under the frame. I think that'll work. Just trace it on so I have it on the table, and I can move this. Sorry, didn't mean to bump you. Now we can really see where that's going to go. So like I said, cool thing about flat tube is that you're going to just draw a line and then you're going to cut through that line and that'll leave you flat there, like that. Where when you're doing round tube, you're just kind of trying to get it as flat as you can on a round surface. So this makes it easy. You'll lay this down, you'll cut this directly across like that. It's flat. It'll butt up next to the next piece that'll be here, which will go from there to there, and then these two will just button up, and then you'll shape this to lay. You'll shape this so that you'll notch it here and here, and it'll lay right in there. So when you're like on square tube frames, all I'm basically doing here is cutting them like that to allow that to fit into that notched area. You're not coping as much, or you're not coping at all other than the head tube, because everything's, four sides flat. Okay, so from a fitment standpoint, I never would have got this kind of a fitment trying to do it by hand. But look at how good that came out. Like, it coped it. I just got to push that together, but it coped it so good. This machine, you guys go give them a follow. It's Chicago brand, and they are on Instagram. They are a family-owned, smaller company, but that machine's amazing. I've said it a lot. And they don't sponsor me by any means, but they are a great company. Always answer my questions. Even did a giveaway for me, so go give them a follow on Instagram, guys. I'll put the link in the description to their Instagram. Go give them a follow. I'll put a link to the description also in to their website if that's something you want. It's not a cheap machine, but that saved me probably an hour. So what's an hour worth to you? One thing I want you guys to know about square tubing is, yes, it does lay flat on the table, but don't forget that it has this little lip area right here, okay? So if you're going to build the frame on the table like I'm doing here, it is gonna lift the head tube up off the table. So don't put any major weld to it until you get it in the jig, just in case you have to adjust it. Because what it could do is you could have your head tube could be cockeyed a little bit. So because this gets pushed underneath, just give it a little tack right here and right there. Don't get all crazy with it. That way, if you need to cut it off, and you can adjust it once it's in the jig and you make sure the head tube's straight. Other than that, the rest of it will lay completely flat. What I did was I shoved it up under there and then I clamped the head tube down so that it's pushed up against it and both of the tubes are underneath it. So I should be fine, but just like a little cheat code tip for you. Take it for what you will. All right, so we've got quite a bit done there. What I think I'm going to do now is go ahead, start really focusing on bottom tube, seat tube, and then I'm going to do the bottom tube first. I want the bottom tube lined up. I'd like to be able to keep taking this off and on if I need to. Do the bottom tube. You kind of, with a square tube frame, you want to get all your bottom section seat stuff done before you do your top tube, because all that's going to slide in like a puzzle. It's not like round tube where you just cope it and you stick it in there. This is going to actually have to slide down that groove. I'm going to work on this tube here, throw in the bottom, go ahead and grind it, into an angle. And then once I've got that part done, we'll work on that seat post, and then that's going to tell me where I need to be. Alright guys, so I wanted to show you super quick. So like I was saying, when you cut these, see how like you can't really mess these up. I mean, you can, but they're way easier to cut than doing round tube because you're going to cut it to an angle, and all you're doing is cutting it straight. You take the flap wheel and really dial it in. Way easier than if you were doing round tube, because round tube's so hard to tell if it's off, you know, off-centered. So now that I've cut this end, when I go down to the other end, I can't help but cut it the exact same way. Where when you have a round tube frame, you don't know if you're dead centered when you cut this one to when you cut this one, so you gotta take your time a little bit more. But this is why I like square tubing, and I think it's easier. A lot of people do not, but whatever. You got the bottom tube, so you've got your down tube, your bottom tube, and now you kind of see what I mean, like how good these fit up. I gotta do a little bit more cleaning up on the tip because the way they're touching, it's got a little bit of a gap, but you can see how much easier it is, because all you're gonna do is you're gonna weld in here, you're gonna weld there, you're gonna grind that back. So this is what I was talking about when I'm saying, like, when you're in here and you've got to weld on round tube and you've got to get up inside of here and clean all that up and then shape it. You don't have to do that with square. Just run your bead here, grind this off to a point, makes a really cool looking front point. So now we're going to do the same thing with the back. I'm going to run that tube up here, seat's going to go there, and we'll be booking and shaking. So now I got the full frame in, all done up. Bottoms are finished. There. We've got the point over here. Seat post. Like I said, we're not going to mess with the top tube yet. That goes last. I am going to go ahead and tack all this in so this doesn't move. And then that way I can lay this down. I will connect this bar with the swoop. And then I will adjust the swoop to start to fit so that it fits there, and does all that. So there she is. I still need to tack in that top tube, the backbone, but you kind of see where I'm getting with this. That'll go to there. I still need to tack those and those here, but you can see, if I can show you, that's how you get that kind of fitment there. You get it to where you just hug it. So you just do a little cut there, and you're just trying to follow this line. Up here, you're gonna get those two, then you're gonna touch to the head tube. Same as before. Quick time lapse, I'm going to tack all this stuff together before I can put it into the jig. Alright, so there you go. This is the start of doing a diamond tubed frame. Okay, so all we got really left to do is a center bar, which I'm going to wait till I do the legs, because this is, like I said, I have to show you the design. I left it up in the house, but the line is going to come from here to here, here to here. So it's going to be a straight line in the back, but the back leg is going to swoop. Now, on square tubes, the chain stays are a little harder to do than they are the round, because you can't bend them the same way. You have to put them in angles, you have to weld them together, you have to align the angles here, depending on what you want to do. You can either splice them this way, or what I like to do is run a piece of tube here that comes out, and then the legs go this way. So, but you got to get these angles correct, or it makes it real complicated to do it. So out here and then back. This one same way. This will come here down, and then what I like to do here is cap it into this area so that all the pressure is pushing here. It's hard to take a tube, or at least a square tube anyway, to bend it this way and then turn it and not have it, you know, trying to figure out, because it's going to be at a different angle. It's not going to be at the same angle. So that's going to take some time, and that is why we are stopping it here, because if not, this will take a lot longer to show you. So I'm going to work on the back, and then next video you guys will actually get to see the back end done, and we should be able to button it up, because I did all this from basically a couple hours at night bending it over there, and then to where you see it now. So not a bunch of time in this one, and that's what I want. if I'm going to produce these, I'm going to start making these more, and these are going to be frames that you can more than likely. I've got 3 of these, and I based them, a few years back, I based it on the 7 Deadly Sins. I made the Lust, which is the lady's bike. I made the Wrath, which is a more complicated frame. This one's going to be known as Envy. So this right here is going to be a frame that you can order from me. All you do is you send me a DM, you say, I want an Envy, and then I'll make this frame for you, and then there can be I'll allow a few added things to it, not much. There isn't going to be any say in how I do it, or I'm not changing anything. You'll get what it is. But if you say you want, I'd like a tank in there, or like I want a metal plate in there, no problem, just upcharge you for that. But other than that, I'm not changing the way the back legs are. I'm not making it so that you can add a motor to it or add electric to it. That is totally on you once you get it. The frame will be how it is, how I build it. So other than that, here's what we are. I'm going to call it a day. I have to go to work. Fun. Anyway, like, subscribe, guys. Please comment below if you have any questions. And I thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.